A teenager named Deb suddenly began to have a seizure.
Deb!
After the doctors completed a brain CT scan, they were stunned. Something seemed to be crawling back and forth between her nose and brain. Using a nasal endoscope, they finally found the culprit. The doctor picked up forceps, carefully inserted them, and slowly pulled it out. It turned out to be a cockroach. Nurse April was shocked. How could a cockroach crawl into someone's nose? The doctors found the answer in the CT scan. Deb has head trauma, likely causing cerebrospinal fluid to leak into her nasal cavity. Attracted by the smell, the cockroach crawled inside. Under questioning from the doctor, Deb revealed that her mom's boyfriend had hit her. Afraid to go home, she stayed at a homeless camp, nearly losing her life as a result. Dr. Choi suggested reporting the case to Child Services, but April disagreed. She feared that Deb would be sent back home and face even worse abuse. The hospital tried contacting nearby group homes, but none had available rooms. Concerned that Deb might end up back on the streets where another emergency could prove fatal, they ultimately decided to notify Child Services. The Child Services worker arrived quickly, but he brought the wrong files.
Amy?
Deb. The patient's name's Deb McCormick.
Oh. Really?
Seeing how unreliable the worker seemed, they were frustrated. April secretly approached Deb and told her that Child Services had arrived. Naturally, Deb slipped out of the hospital unnoticed. Dr. Choi, of course, knew it was April's doing. But thinking about the unreliable Child Services worker, he did not hold her accountable. Instead, he asked her to gather some medications. After their shift, the two went to the homeless camp together. They brought Deb some daily supplies and antibiotics. They also taught her friend how to treat her wounds, hoping she could survive in the camp despite the harsh conditions. When the doctor cut open the patient's belly, a strange smell was emitted, poisoning all the doctors in the room and knocking them to the ground. It turned out the woman had taken a certain herbal supplement combined with chemo, which led to the toxicity. Fortunately, people outside noticed in time, and the poisoned doctors were rescued from danger. However, at this moment, the woman's abdominal cavity was still open, and her anesthesia was about to wear off. Before long, she would die from the pain. After this incident, none of the doctors dared to enter the operating room to administer more anesthesia to the patient. Just then, the woman suddenly woke up. The doctor realized they could no longer delay. Holding her breath and wearing a mask, she rushed into the operating room, seeing the patient in agony. The doctor immediately administered anesthesia to her, but after completing this task, the doctor could barely hold her breath anymore. She staggered out of the operating room, just managing to escape before fainting. Other doctors in protective suits then took over. They had to continue the surgery on the woman. However, because the batteries hadn't been charging for long, they only had 30 minutes to work, which was far from enough. Two more doctors collapsed in the process, with no other option. The remaining doctors decided to take turns working. Holding their breath, they used plastic to wrap the woman's belly, preventing the toxins in her blood from spreading. One doctor took a deep breath, rushed into the operating room, and dealt with the blood in the woman's abdominal cavity, then quickly ran out. The next doctor went in, wrapping the woman's abdomen with plastic. They worked in shifts, going back and forth until they successfully sealed the wound. Once it was safe, the woman was transferred for blood purification. Believe it or not, this story was adapted from a real-life event. This autistic boy contracted a strange illness. One eyeball suddenly flipped over, and such a bizarre scene was the first time Dr. House had seen it. Just a few days ago, the father brought out cards for his son to identify, but the boy's gaze was unfocused, unable to select the correct card. Only knowing that curves were drawn on the cardboard, suddenly the boy clutched his throat, as if something was stuck, then let out a piercing scream. But after the doctor's examination, no foreign objects were found in his throat. House suspected a parasitic infection. He immediately conducted lung scan and stool test on the boy, but the results showed no parasites and the lung scan was normal. At the same time, new problems arose. Examinations revealed damage to the boy's liver and consecutive abnormalities in the heart, liver, and lungs. House suspected it was related to calcium carbonate in the boy's stool and speculated that the boy had pica, possibly eating something he shouldn't have. He immediately sent a colleague to the boy's home for inspection to see if he had eaten anything inappropriate. House then went to the boy's hospital room, trying to get the boy to tell him what he had eaten. The boy took off a card with a sandbox drawn on it. Before House could react, the boy's right eye suddenly rolled up, his eyeball experiencing severe displacement, and then he passed out again. He immediately observed the boy's eyes and indeed found worms continuously moving in the boy's eyes, because animals excrete feces into sand, and the boy with pica ate the sand from the sandbox while playing. But parasites had not been detected in the boy's stool before. House explained that raccoon roundworms are not excreted by humans through feces, and the worms continuously spread from the digestive tract to other parts of the body, first infecting the lungs, which also caused fluid accumulation. Then the worms invaded the liver, and dead liver cells carried by lymphatic fluid attacked the boy's eyeballs and ciliary muscles, causing his eyeball to flip backward and displace. Finding the cause made treatment possible. possible, and soon the boy's condition improved. This teenage girl Riley's nosebleed had not stopped for the past hour. The doctor immediately applied an adrenaline solution to stop the bleeding. However, Riley's parents told the doctor that their daughter might be experiencing some subconscious symptoms due to her wish to reunite her divorced parents. So after the bleeding stopped, the parents decided to take her home. But just then, Riley felt a sharp pain in her chest as if she had been stabbed. She then coughed up blood. The doctor suspected something more serious was going on. She performed a nasal examination on Riley, but found nothing wrong with her nasal cavity. Why was Riley's nose bleeding non-stop then? The doctor quickly ordered a CT scan, which revealed a significant shadow in her chest. The doctor suspected a tumor and determined that immediate surgery was necessary. The surgery was highly risky, but Riley's parents, prioritizing their daughter's health, agreed to it. During the operation, the doctor made an incision in Riley's chest to search for the tumor, but they couldn't find it anywhere. As the doctors were puzzled, they discovered an unidentified object in her lung. Upon removing it, they found it was a Lego piece. It turned out Riley had inhaled the Lego piece when she was 3 years old, and it had stayed in her lung for years, causing an immune response. This was the root cause of her non-stop nosebleeds and bloody coughing. Ultimately, it all came down to her parents. If they had shown more care and attention to Riley, she wouldn't have suffered for so many years.
The chainsaw human performance failed. The woman was unexpectedly sawed in half, and such a horrifying scene. Even though it was on TV, the doctors were still startled to scream. Initially, it seemed like just a show, but to everyone's surprise, in the next moment, the woman truly cut in 2 parts was sent to the hospital. This was indeed a true incident.
Slow down and tell me what happened.
She's my wife and assistant. Please don't let her die. We were performing at a trade show.
No, we weren't ready.
The woman wasn't prepared. The impatient magician husband proceeded with the saw, resulting in the tragedy to happen.
Woman, what?
It was saw the lady in half? No way.
Horribly wrong.
And he really did. With
The assistant on the side was on the verge of collapse. The woman was severely injured. The doctor could hardly imagine the despair she felt at that moment. To facilitate the doctor's intervention, the assistant was about to describe the incident. Unexpectedly, the man stopped her on the spot.
Someone get them out of here.
Even though his wife's life was hanging by a thread, the man was worried about the secrecy of the magic being exposed. Never had seen such a small baby. At birth, the weight was less than 1 pound, and the size was no bigger than a palm. Even the doctor couldn't help but marvel.
My God, he's the size of a soda can.
14 ounces.
Looking at the baby before her, the mother's heart ached deeply, for the baby faced the constant risk of death due to premature birth. However, what was unexpected was that the father not only showed no concern, but actually advised his wife to give up the baby.
We're thinking that getting pregnant was an accident, that this baby should not be alive right now. That doing every damn thing we can to keep it alive is just so that we can feel good about ourselves after he dies. Now, can you admit any of that?
Upon hearing this, the nearby doctor was shocked, and the wife's eyes turned red with tears. She never imagined as the child's father her husband would say such words.
I'm offering you an out.
What are you saying?
I'm saying take the out, Chris.
In fact, the husband had long harbored thoughts of giving up the baby. When the wife suggested giving the baby a name, the husband insisted on waiting a few more weeks. In fact, he was not optimistic that the baby would survive from the beginning, and had even used a mobile app to check the baby's survival rate.
Chance of survival, still a whopping 13.
A series of car accidents occurred in the city. The driver said she saw a human-sized giant cat. Just when everyone thought the woman was hallucinating, a man was sent to the hospital. The doctor was very surprised to see him, staring at that cat face in a daze.
You know, it's not my face. It's injured. It's my arm.
The doctor, who reacted quickly, went to check the arm.
Meow.
Thought the attending doctor would be more serious, not just like the intern always staring at the cat's face, but didn't expect that even the attending doctor could not help herself.
Yeah, you know what? Let's just worry about getting you out of here with all of your 9 lives, okay?
Fortunately, the man's arm was not seriously injured. He could continue to be the cat man after the recovery. The man talked about the origin of his cat face. When he was 19, due to his mediocre appearance, not very liked by those around him, so he put everything into it. Even took out a loan to get plastic surgery. A doctor was very curious, asking him if any girl would like him. The man said he had a girlfriend when he started the modifications, and she liked it. As time went by, he looked more and more like a cat. His girlfriend just left him. 20 years had passed. He couldn't get a girlfriend anymore.